All right, we got some good news here for the hardcore Tszyu supporters. I'm going to pull up this document here if you haven't seen it, floating around on social media, Facebook. The WBO has ordered or made Tszyu the #1 contender for the WBO championship, in which 154-pound champion Brian Castano holds. Now, it's a very complex situation. It does not mean that he gets Castano next. It does not mean, he's going to get him pretty much. It's complex. So we'll start here. I'm TstreeT Controversy with my colleague Big J on the line with FightView360.com. There's a 14-page document here. I'm going to put the link down below in the description box, and it's very detailed. And basically, from everything that I've read from this document, the WBO's resolution to the super welterweight WBO status is that Tszyu is being made mandatory pretty much because of his popularity. So let me read some points here for you from the WBO. Statement of the facts. Whereas on Wednesday, August the 4th, 2021, the WBO president, Francisco Paco Velasquez Esquire, issued notice ordering teams Tszyu and Kurbanov to file their respective arguments within 5 days on why each participant deserves to be a mandatory challenger. So basically, it's like, okay, even though Kurbanov beat Liam Smith in a final eliminator, the WBO is like, you know what? One of these guys has to be the mandatory. Let's see what they both have to say. Now, that right there raises some red flags, because that goes to show they're kind of leaning towards one way. And with Tszyu, his name being known, everything's pointing to me, or known being from his father, and he's very well known in Australia, headlining pay-per-views. They want to chase the money. So what you see in this document here, Tszyu's team responded, and before I let Big J in, I'm going to read this in its entirety. On Wednesday, August the 11th, Tszyu replied Team Kurbanov's arguments and ratified their contention as being more deserving of a mandatory challenger position. Whereas on August the 12th, Team Kurbanov filed a reply to Team Tszyu. Basically, they're fighting back and forth. Sir replied to Tszyu's correspondence and clarified their position and addressed their initial filings. Shortly thereafter, Tim Kurbanov filed 2 additional points for the committee's consideration. So if you see this going back and forth, and me with my legal issues throughout the years, I know what this means. Kurbanov is fighting to keep their spot, because you can pretty much say that they probably assumed that they were going to be, that they were over Tszyu in the mandatory status after they beat Liam Smith. And then the WBO threw this way. So here's what Team Tszyu had to say in their contention. Let me zoom in. Tim Tszyu's professional record is a perfect one, comprised of 19 wins with no defeats, no draws with 15 said wins by KO. Tim Tszyu is already a pay-per-view star in Australia and currently recognized as one of the emerging stars in professional boxing, and the only boxer in the world to headline 2 stadium shows during 2020. And Tim Tszyu professional fights are broadcast live in the USA through ESPN, as well as in Russia, UK, South America, Asia, respectively. Currently holds the WBO Global Junior Middleweight Championship title and has successfully defended his WBO Junior Middleweight Regional Championship 5 times in 18 months, making Tszyu the most active and dominant contender in the junior middleweight division. Now, I'm going to stop right there, and before I let Big J in, we're going to go I'm going to go read the arguments from Kurbanov, the first 3 or 4. Kurbanov has an extensive and impressive record of accomplishments and achievements, certifying him as a class boxer and undefeated during his last 6-year professional career, and has held the WBO Youth, WBO Intercontinental, and WBO International Championship titles. And in May 2021, Kurbanov defeated then rated and number 2 position in the junior welterweight rankings former WBO world champion Liam Smith, and Liam Smith's only previous defeats were to pound-for-pound King Canelo Alvarez and highly rated Jaime Munguia. And Kurbanov's activity weighs entirely in his favor when compared to that of Tim Tszyu. Kurbanov put his then number 5 rated position at risk and challenged then number 2 ranked Liam Smith, winning unanimous decision. And Kurbanov has fought 3 times in the last year, with his last 12 bouts being scheduled for 10 or more rounds. So, Big J, to bring you see what they're doing there and how they're like, okay, all right, let's see what both of these teams have to say on why they should be mandatory. And do you agree with it?
Oh. Excuse me. Well, the one point that Tim Tszyu left out of his document, and he's not going to say this, is that his opponent's nothing more than blown up, washed up welterweights and Dennis Hogan. So you can't even compare it. I see their argument. Jeff Horn was a former WBA 147 champion. Dennis Hogan was a former WBA 154 title contender. You can't argue he destroyed both those guys. No argument there. But what's he done since he beat, Jeff Horn? He fought Bowen Morgan, not rated with the WBO, not even rated at 154. Then he fought Steven Spark. I know I like villain for Zarafa, but Zarafa's never been rated at 154 for the WBO that I know of. And he hasn't beaten one person in the top 15 of any sanctioning body at WBO currently ranked.
You know what? Let me jump in here real quick. You know what the issue I'm having as I'm reading this, and I glanced through it, I admit, when it was first released, but this is the first time I'm actually really reading it. They're going off of popularity. That's clearly, they're chasing the money. And I want to know, what was the point of Kurbanov's eliminator against Liam Smith if it's like, okay, well, you know what? Tell us why we should give it to you over who can bring in more money in Tim Tszyu. It doesn't really make sense to me. I can't figure out why they just didn't make them fight each other. Why we've been talking about that. Why aren't they ordered to fight?
Exactly. Problem solved. Tszyu fights Kurbanov. The winner gets Castano. That's pretty simple. Because there would be
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, there would be a lot of guys in the top 15. Hurd, Liam Smith, especially Kurbanov, that's going to be pretty angry about this, considering Tim hasn't beaten anybody ranked in the WBO top 15. He hasn't beaten anyone ranked in the top 15 since he beat Jeff Horn. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe Jeff Horn was 6th when he fought Jeff. That was a year ago. He hasn't fought anyone. How is he the number 1 contender? I question this for the WBO. I'm happy that he's got his title shot. Well, he hasn't got his title, but he's the mandatory. But
and you can see that according to this document, they did a SIR reply, so which means that once Tim Tszyu issued his reasons with the pay-per-view stuff, he's the bigger star, yada yada yada. He's done this and that. Kurbanov's team sent another. So let me see if I can find this real quick. So it says on Thursday, August the 12th, Tim Kurbanov filed a SIR reply to Team Tszyu's final submittal and clarified their position as to the arguments addressed in their initial following. Shortly after that, on the same date, Tim Kurbanov filed 2 additional points for the committee. So basically, they're like, they're trying to fight because they already know what's going on.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem to make. It doesn't seem to make much sense because Tim Tszyu's only big in Australia. Internationally, he's he's probably not that popular. Well, obviously because you struggle to pick up his fights.
Yeah.
Does the UK show his fights? Not to our knowledge.
I don't think so. No.
I don't think so. So, in Australia he's big. He's got the Russians, of course. But he hasn't cracked the American market yet. He's never even fought overseas.
Yeah.
So, but that's I get it, but I don't get it. But if he gets his title shot, great. But let's move on to if he does get his title shot. What are his chances? Pretty slim.
Yeah.
Pretty slim. His chances of beating Castano, considering he has virtually no record against established 154ers. Anyone thinks that Tim Tszyu is going to get in there and crack out Brian Castano is either dead wrong or hasn't got a fucking clue what they're talking about.
Anything yet. You know what? I'm here's the thing. Oh, by the way, let me read the resume of these guys really quickly to get it out of the way. Tim Tszyu, 19-0 with 15 KOs, 26 years old. BoxRec has updated his alias as the Soul Taker. He's listed at 5'8.5", competes at 154 pounds. Last 5 opponents: Steve Spark, Dennis Hogan, Bowen Morgan, Jeff Horn, Jack Brubaker. Now, let's go through Jeff Horn. I'm going to go ahead and say I still believe he was sick during fight week. You interviewed him. Jeff Horn didn't sound well. And also Jeff Horn was coming off those 2 wars with Mick Zarafa. And pretty much you can say that Jeff Horn, you know, I'm going to go ahead and say damaged goods. You know, and as you call him,
he was shot. He was shot to pieces by the time Tim Tszyu got
I'm going to let you take it away from here. Bowen Morgan, Dennis Hogan, Steve Spark, one by one, what did you think of those fights, and how did they help or not help Tim Tszyu?
Okay, well, let's go through it. Let me just bring up his record here. Okay, Jack Brubaker, blown up welterweight. Never fought at 154 before or since. You know, never going to be a world title contender, never going to be a world champion. Nothing going on there. All right, so we'll move on to
Bowen Morgan.
Bowen Morgan. What do they say about him? Blown up welterweight. You know, yes, he did have a couple of successes. I think he had a couple of wins over Gunnar Jackson, who fought Mundine there at one stage. I don't think he's fought since that Tim Tszyu fighting. I'll just have a quick look.
He has not.
Blown up welterweight.
No, actually, no. Yes, he did. He had a split decision after, also at 154, 7 months later in July of 2021, last month.
All right, fair enough. But, you know, ranked at 147 at the time, barely ranked at 140 at the time. Nothing going on there. You know, not ranked at 154, so nothing going on there. Dennis Hogan, obviously the best 154-pounder at the time of the fight, but obviously coming off a war with Jaime Munguia, which he should have won, and a beatdown of Jamal Charlo, who beat him up at middleweight. 36 years old, obviously past his best, looking down the barrel of retirement.
Yeah, 15-month layoff, something like that?
Yes, and a 15-month layoff. So, you know, you said that he would win. I said that Tim would get him in about round 8 and got him in round 5. Yeah, but obviously, you know, Dennis's age and inactivity caught up with him. So, and Stevie Spark, we can't say a bad word against Stevie Spark because he was a late, you know, fill in, a blown up 140er. And look what Stevie Spark did to him in the first couple of rounds.
Yeah.
Flipped him 3 or 4 times in the first couple of rounds. So Stevie Spark actually made Tim Tszyu look worse. Even though he knocked him out in 3 rounds, he still got to him in that first round. So, with the exception of Dennis Hogan, none of those fighters did anything for Tim Tszyu but make him look bad, because all he's done is beat up, blown up welterweights. So,
yeah,
as I said, he hasn't done anything since he beat Jeff Horn. I mean, he's beaten, Dennis Hogan, but, you know, past his best, long layoff.
By the way, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead. No, I'm finishing.
The Russian, Magomed Kurbanov, who we were talking about, who the WBO has clearly chosen Tim Tszyu over. He is 22-0 with 13 KOs, 26 years old. Last fight was in May of this year against Liam Smith. Before that, he's pretty much primarily fought in Russia. And, you know, I'm on this. I feel the same way. Why didn't they just order both of these guys to fight? Especially since there is, even though Tim Tszyu is ordered the mandatory, he hasn't been ordered to fight Castano yet. They haven't been ordered to start negotiations. So to move on to the second part of the video, what they're doing is the WBO is waiting to see what the IBF does. So here's the perfect time to pull up the rankings. Link down below in the description box, fightview360.com. Here's the champions. WBC, WBA, IBF belongs to Jermell Charlo. WBO, Brian Castano. Right now, Charlo has 2 mandatories. Erickson Lubin, but then the first is Bakhram Murtazaliev. Bakhram Murtazaliev has been waiting for his mandatory shot for, if not a year, if not close to a year. He's been fighting on Charlo undercards. He's expected to get his shot. Now, what the WBO is waiting for is if the IBF is going to allow for Charlo and Castano to fight again. If they're allowed, it depends on if Murtazaliev is going to take another step aside, fight on the undercard, and be ordered to fight the winner, or fight for the interim title and be ordered to fight the winner. But it's in his hands. They're going to have to pay him a shitload of money. But even if they paid him the money to step aside and to wait longer for his title shot or to fight for an interim, it's still in the IBF's hands to approve this, because the IBF is known to be the most strict sanctioning body. So in a perfect world, we would have Charlo Castano 2. The winner is still going to have to fight Murtazaliev first. So understand that if, let's say, whoever becomes undisputed, if it's Castano or Charlo, Murtazaliev is still next, and then Tszyu's mandatory comes after that. So it's IBF first, then the WBO after. But if the IBF says, you know what, no, we've been waiting too long, and if Murtazaliev says, no, we've been waiting too long, Charlo has to fight Murtazaliev or vacate the belt to fight Brian Castano. It's a very complex situation, but something tells me, regardless, I don't see Tszyu getting his title shot. You know, I mean, what's he talking about? He wants to have it in February 2022. In fact, it's perfect time to move on to that tweet, which I have here. And who's the guy that posted this? Glenn Jennings. Is that like one of his managers? Is that No Limit Boxing?
Yeah, Glenn Jennings is manager, yes.
Okay, so let me read this real quick. Some great news this morning. After weeks of hard work back and forth with the WBO, we received written confirmation that Tim is now mandated for a world title fight, most likely February 2022. Meantime, we will continue with our plans for the Tim to fight in November. First, congrats to Tim. He has fought, and best of all in front of him, and thoroughly deserved the best of all in front of him, and thoroughly deserves this world title shot. I'm a very proud manager and mate as we tick off yet another career milestone for Tim and our team. It has been an amazing effort from all involved. Big shout out to the Rose brothers, No Limit Boxing, our promoters. Together, we have achieved something special in a very short time. So I'm getting from that maybe the WBO told them, all right, we're going to wait and see what happens with the IBF and Charlo, and we're going to order them to start negotiations with you. I'm guessing at the beginning of the year. I'm guessing
because they were before this all happened, they were planning for Tim to fight in November anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the story is that he's in negotiations with Tony Harrison. Get him out of here.
Resume. Before I let you continue, I have his resume here. Tony Harrison, former WBC. Wait, what champion did he have? Yeah, he had beat Charlo for the WBC champion. I was at that fight ringside. 28-3-1 with 21 KOs. Damn, I gotta start getting back to fights again. And he hasn't been active since having a controversial split decision in April of this year against Brian Perella. He didn't look good. But go ahead, continue. I mean, me personally, it's hard to see him going over to Australia, but we'll see.
No, I don't see it. I mean, I've been told that they're in negotiations, but that's all I know. I mean,
we've been hearing about these negotiations for a few months now.
Yeah, but that's all I know. There's, they're in negotiations. The plan, I think, as No Limit, they want to have this 3-fight Magic Round weekend around the 21st of November, the Friday, the Saturday, the Sunday in Queensland.
But we talked about it. It's lockdowns, right? And also, Harrison would have to do a 2-week quarantine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, New South Wales is an absolute mess at the moment. They're getting 1,000 cases a day. Queensland shut the borders off internationally and domestically, so no one can get into Queensland at the moment. At the moment, with all the COVID that's going on there, no one's going anywhere. So I don't see anything happening in November. I don't see anything happening until early next year, to be perfectly honest.
And now, let me look at the rankings. If Tszyu does fight, he's going to have to fight somebody that's ranked. He's going to have to fight. And I'm looking at the names. It's probably going to be a bottom of the barrel guy. But these guys are also going to have to do that quarantine.
Yeah, well, good luck getting them come out here to a quarantine to get beat up by Tszyu.
Yeah,
that ain't going to happen. So I don't see that happening. If he is going to fight, he'll fight a local guy. Probably just another domestic fighter. Personally, I think if they're going to give him another fight for the end of the year, fight Wade Ryan again. Why not? That'd be an interesting fight. So that's just my opinion. But yeah, I don't see anything like that happening. Unfortunately, I'd really like to see it, but I think with the current climate of what's going on, I don't see it happening. Hopefully, it does, but I'm not. I'm not confident. But I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what do you think if he does get Castano? What do you think his chances are? I think very
honestly,
slim.
I think, as you would say, I think that Castano will belt him. You know, especially with it's not enough data. You know, I'm the type of boxing commentator, vlogger, journalist, whatever you want to say, where you got to show me something. I can't pick a fringe contender, a prospect whose fights I've been covering, who hasn't shown me to fight someone that he can beat somebody of the level of Castano to say that he would beat him. You know, I haven't seen enough from Tszyu, and I've seen him get, take some shots. You know, and of course, fighters are going to take shots from lower level competition. That has me wondering, how would he deal with Castano? You know, I'm sorry, Castano now, in a lot of people's eyes, defeated Erislandy Lara, okay? In a lot of people's eyes, defeated Jamel Charlo. Bro, I can't pick him, Tszyu, to beat him. I can't.
Neither can I. I mean, the biggest problem with Tszyu is in the first two rounds, he's very amateurish. He sits back. He doesn't really do much. Yeah. He gets those feeling out. Because he did it against Dennis Hogan. We picked up on that. He's like, what's he doing? Because Dennis Hogan had all over him those first two rounds. Mm-hmm. Once he gets his eye in, he's pretty hard to beat. And as said, Stevie Spark clipped him in the first round of that fight. If he wasn't, if he was an actual 154 and had the power, Tim would have been in trouble. So
yeah, I love the body work, and he has
body
shown
work's great.
He's a technician.
Oh, absolutely.
He is. He really passes the eye test, as the saying goes. But it's still too early to tell.
But it's easy to pass the eye test when you're fighting lower level, blown up welterweights. Mm. Let's be honest here. That's all he's been fighting. He hasn't fought, and I keep saying this, currently 154 ranked in any sanctioning body, not just the WBO, anybody.
Yeah.
When he fought Dennis Hogan was 10 in WBC. Wasn't ranked by the WBO. Yeah. The last guy that was in the top 15 was Jeff Horn, number 6. That was a year ago. Morgan wasn't ranked. Zarafa wasn't ranked. I'm not, Stevie Spark, we're not going to. He was still late.
The Zarafa fight, though, I was looking forward to that, I'm looking forward to it.
That is going to go. That is going to go down as the biggest non-event in Australian. This generation's biggest, never happened.
Yeah.
So that's never going to be revisited.
Now that he's mandatory, it's no point. It's done.
Yeah, I don't see those two ever getting in the ring. So, which is very, very unfortunate, but you got to move on. So
all right. Closing thoughts. We short on time.
Well, I'm happy that he's mandatory. If he gets his shot, great. And of course, I want him to win. Australian boxing really needs someone to be a world champion. I mean, it'll be great. I mean, but having said that, I don't see him winning. I don't see him getting past. I don't see him getting the job done. But if he does, great, fantastic. We'll jump on board, and I'll be happy as a lamb. But anyway, we'll see what happens. So
all right,
good on him at the moment. So
since we're short on time, I'm going to go ahead and say we have a special announcement. In October, we're launching, to start off, a twice a month, every 2 week Australian Fight View 360 podcast. It's very, very early stages, but definitely before Tszyu steps back into the ring, especially since there's not enough Australian boxing content, to be honest. And I really believe that we have a strong chance to be successful in that market of audio only. It's going to be edited content. The interviews that Big J does, we're going to be adding them to the podcast format. So easy listening. And for those who like my, video content overall on the channel and, me and Big J's video, I've noticed that a lot of people are tuning in more and more as the months go on. Now you'll be able to get it in straight audio format, whether you're on your way to work, at the gym, and you know how we do. It's going to be no frills, straight to the point, not a whole bunch of yik-yakking and dead content. We're going to be talking about Australian boxing, and I'm talking about deep diving. So one issue that I'm going to run into, and I'm going to be blatantly honest with you, is it is difficult for me to be able to watch these fights. I try. You can't say I don't try. But, you know, we do have the connection to be able to keep up with covering the fights. But when it comes to the big Australian stars, Australian championship fights, you know, we're going to be doing a podcast on those fights. Take your time out. Please follow us on Twitter, Old Mate Big J, simple as that, and TstreeT Controversy. So in October, it's going to be some major changes to our Australian boxing format, and we're going to go from there. Take your time out, like the video, please subscribe.